time then to get on to the big game, the Saturday lunchtime Merseyside derby, Everton and Liverpool. I mean, I think for me, this game lived up to the hype of what the drama that I was expecting. I certainly couldn't have predicted the events of the game. Boothie, did you watch
couldn't predict the score, which I did.
So John got the score
I got it right,
completely right.
3-2,
I had 3-2 to Liverpool, which, Tom, was that the correct score to predict?
Absolutely. No, it's very hard to take the late winner being struck off. Obviously when you think back to like the sort of mistakes, if you like, that VAR has made before, or at least offsides that maybe don't feel like they're in the spirit of the offside rule that have been ruled out by VAR in the past. If there's been like an armpit or a toe offside, at least you could see kind of what they were basing it on. For this one, you just look at the picture and you just think, I just don't know what they were going for here. I just really can't see the bit of Mane that was sort of deemed to be offside, and the pass is definitely being made. It's all like within frame. Yeah, it's really, really gutting for that to happen in such a big game, especially with it might have taken the edge off, obviously, the big loss, which I'm sure we'll come to in a bit, getting the victory at least. But yes, it's mad. I think like, when you think what the point of the offside rule was and when it was, why it was brought in, it's just like to stop goal hanging. And I think if you think back to before VAR, all the goals where the commentator would be like, oh, and the striker has like timed his run perfectly, like half of them would now be like struck off. Yeah. So it's tough to take. But obviously you just kick on and,
Yeah.
If it leads to change, then maybe it's a net positive, but it's got to be looked at when it's just so many people who've got like no investment in it. Random players who you wouldn't think have any sort of skin in the game tweeting out like what is going on.
Yeah,
you can tell that they've made a massive error.
Yeah, I mean so the guy that made the mistake. For that disallowed Henderson goal. I mean, they're saying it was a mistake. I think it was a pretty good save, but obviously he's parried it kind of into his own net. Jordan Pickford was involved in, I guess, the key moment of the game. It was in the first 10 minutes, I think. Well within the first 10 minutes. Yeah.
First 5, yeah.
He comes out, clatters Liverpool's best player, maybe the best player in the Premier League, Virgil van Dijk. At the time when the incident happened, did you guys think it was really, really serious? Did you think it could be an injury that would put someone out for a long time? John, I guess I'll come to you on that.
Boothie or John Miller?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, John Miller. I'll go Boothie and then John. You can be John.
I didn't watch the game live, so I didn't have an instant reaction.
Wrong person to come to then.
Yeah, exactly.
we'll throw it to Boothie quickly on this one.
Yeah. You know what? Off initial reaction, I thought, all right, Van Dijk's a big guy. He's a unit, so I think he'd get up, shake it off and carry on. But when you saw him like on the floor, you saw him wincing a bit. I was like, ooh, this could be a little bit serious. And once you watch the replays, it just looked worse and worse and worse because Pickford just flung himself at Van Dijk. Rightly so, because he has to go for the ball. You know what I mean? It's part of the sport. But then once you see him hobble off, you're like, yeah, he's done. He's out for a few months at least. But now seeing that it's like 7-8 months apparently, it's a bad one. It's a bad one. You know what I mean?
It's interesting to get your opinion, Beef. Obviously, you're a goalkeeper yourself. So, is there, just looking at that, obviously you've seen it a few times. Is there anything you think you could have done differently, given the fact that you're a goalkeeper yourself?
You know what? Yeah, I've got to defend Pickford because at the end of the day, he's paid to
Goalkeepers Union.
You got to back us. You know what I mean? Because as he gets paid to do that kind of stuff, put himself on the line, like he has to risk himself as well, diving for the ball. Because if he doesn't do it, then Van Dijk gets an opportunity on goal. You know what I mean? So at the end of the day, I have to back him. And to be fair, he didn't deserve to get any retribution afterwards as well, because that's his job to make them kind of decisions and risky tackles. You know what I mean?
Is it one of those incidents where, because I think Van Dijk's leg was planted at the time, and I think, is it like I don't know whether it was a hyperextension or not, but like his right leg was planted and kind of locked into place. And I think there was one camera angle in particular. I think I only saw it once during the game, but it was the one kind of from the opposite side of the goal behind. And you actually see in slow motion, there's a moment where Van Dijk realizes how Pickford's coming out, and probably realizes that he's just planted his leg. And there's almost like a moment of like, what are you doing, bro? Like this, you are gonna hurt me here. And yeah, obviously, like it has caused a very, very substantial injury. Now you mentioned, maybe 7 to 8 months. That's certainly going to cover pretty much the Premier League season. It will cover the season this year. So if he's out for the year, how much of a blow is that to Liverpool's hopes of kind of retaining the title? And I'll come to Spurs fan Greg on this one.
Well, when all of that happened, I threw quite an interesting statistic to you guys in the group chat. Liverpool have never played a Premier League game without Van Dijk. So I think that we're going
to... Since he's been there, yeah.
Very different... since he signed, obviously, yeah. So it's going to be a very different setup. You know, I think that definitely that back four, you can always... He's proven to be that player you can rely on. If the ball gets through the midfield, it's right, Virgil's on it. That dynamic goes now. I think it gets really difficult. And I think, you know, you're seeing a lot of the players on social media, even Alcantara, who's only been there a matter of weeks now, on social media. I think even just emotionally and mentally, it's a big impact on this squad. So I think it's going to be very interesting. And I think that a lot of teams, you know, you don't like to revel in an injury, of course, but you're going to see an opportunity with that.
Tom, is the checkbook likely to open in January?
Yeah, I mean, at the start of the transfer window, it looked like Liverpool were like keeping their checkbook closed. Obviously, we've signed a few players now, and then it sort of seemed to be leading to possibly getting linked to Koulibaly towards the end of the transfer window. He's obviously got the Sadio Mane connection with the national team. Obviously, nothing came of it, but I think obviously seeing how the next 2.5 months go, and then it's very possible. I mean, the problem is that Gomez and Matip are pretty injury prone themselves, and actually there has been some talk.
WWE moment here.
Yeah, there has been some talk of Matip picking up a slight injury and going for a scan today as well.
Wow.
So yeah, it seems unlikely that we haven't already thought about it, and we'll just see how the next couple of months go, both in terms of the form of Matip and Gomez. Probably Fabinho will end up playing there quite a bit as well now, and then as well as their injuries. I don't think Van Dijk plays again this season. Even, you know, probably April you're looking at as the earliest that he could be coming back. But I think either we've got nothing to play for, in which case why bother risking him, or if we've still got something to play for, that suggests that like his replacements have done all right. Yeah. In which case just keep him in. And I think he'll obviously have one eye on the Euros as well. If he won't want to rush back and kind of
aggravate something.
Yeah, exactly. Not be able to play in that. I mean, fair play. A massive player like that, you want him. You want to. I'm sure Klopp as well. He's always got like, it's not just like Liverpool. He always gives like the players, their personal wishes and stuff. So, I think we'll see what happens. But I could definitely see us signing someone major. In January.
It would be interesting because obviously, Van Dijk probably out, significant January signings, and you think in the history since there's been that January transfer window, Van Dijk's certainly up there. Maybe I think Aguero came in January as well when he first came to City, but Koulibaly not having any Premier League experience up to this point, it would be a very good test of his quality to see if he could just slot into a team.
Come straight in
halfway through the season, but I'm sure probably slotting into that team might be a little bit easier than some others. So Levi, hello and welcome to the show. You've been.
You know what I mean? Look what time it is. You know.
I'm always one to make an entrance, and I didn't think it was fair that I left Tom on his own while I left him with all of the weird London club supporters. So I thought I'd come support him and not leave him alone.
Appreciate it. Joining me in the pit of despair.
So, I think have you caught all of the discussion so far, Levi? On
you know what? I caught the most important part about the Virgil van Dijk discussion, making sure that no one was talking any smack, basically. And I just wanted to make sure of that. But I'm most worried about Boofy, actually, but he actually stayed in line. And Greg made sure he stayed in line as well, because there's not very much he can say after the weekend that Spurs have had, but you know.
Absolutely no need. Yeah, I'm all right, thank you.
I did one thing I did wonder with, you know, if so Pickford, you know, there's been a lot of sort of ex-players and stuff coming out today, and goalkeepers union and stuff saying, you know, no player goes out there intentionally to hurt another player. How much do you think in the Premier League, though, there's a culture of, you know, be rough on someone early in the game to kind of send a message? Because I think it was within the first 30 seconds, Van Dijk went in quite hard on James Rodriguez in a 50-50. And I think and then I think he had another challenge on either Alan or one of the other midfielders. Maybe it was Richarlison, but you know, I think Van Dijk kind of started the game quite aggressively in terms of like he was out there to kind of boss that game. I do wonder, is that something that a goalkeeper like Pickford would pick up that energy, and then you know, I'm not saying he targeted him, but is that something that, you know, a player might reciprocate if they see another player doing it? And Boofy, I guess, particularly would a goalkeeper do that?
Yeah, 100%. You know, if you see a centre back going hard in the player, it'll get you riled up. You know what I mean? You get a bit hyper, especially in a derby game as well. It's a massive game for the Scouse lot. So, and especially Pickford as well. Pickford is, what's the word I'm looking for? Erratic. All that, yeah. So I think he's kind of guy would definitely pick off the vibe and go a bit harder than he has to be. But like I said earlier, he's doing his job. You know what I mean? He doesn't make that challenge. Van Dijk scores. You know what I mean? So that's it. It's football, isn't it? That's all it is.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to cut in there just because.
Oh, here we go. Here we go.
There's the argument there that we're almost justifying Van Dijk's strong challenges that, if they were obviously endangering opponents, would have been penalised. For Pickford being almost to have some sort of justification as to why a challenge of that nature comes in. Quite frankly, there's a difference. I would like to outline a difference between a strong challenge and a completely reckless challenge. Pickford came in way above, almost at knee height, and quite frankly, whether or not he's reading the game, the big derby game, and whether or not it's just football, the argument remains the same. He should have been sent off. I think personally, he should still face retrospective action. Probably not going to happen, but I just think it sets a precedent for what we come to expect. And this is the argument that a lot of football fans have. Refereeing decisions have no consistency. And the sooner they get consistency, the less people will moan. And that's the bottom line. Should have been sent off. Going forward, challenges like that, are they now acceptable? And the answer is, quite frankly, going to be no. So I just think there should be some sort of retrospective action and challenges like that. Full stop. I don't care. Derby game or not. Unacceptable.
But it wasn't deliberate, though. You know what I mean? He was going for the ball. He wasn't going for Van Dijk. You know what I mean?
Deliberate or not, a red card, endangered another opponent, just because he turned around and said, "Oh, I've done it by accident," doesn't mean that we're suddenly going to be like, "Oh, it's all right, Pickford. Nothing's going to happen to you now because you didn't mean it." Bottom line, reckless challenge, and it should be a red card.
So you mentioned there as well, like messages being sent out. I think one of the messages sent out was that, you know, if it's offside, you can do whatever you want. Like, as long as it's offside, you can, you know.
Fair game.
Yeah, it's fair game. But I think, yeah, there's certainly some large inconsistencies. Quickly then, Levi, last point on this, because you weren't in for the first bit. Thoughts on the Henderson disallowed winner?
I genuinely, Like when that happened, I think my blood reached boiling point, and I don't think any other Liverpool fan felt any differently. Bottom line is, I think the game's lost it with what is offside and what's not, whether we're giving the attacker the advantage anymore or if we're not. What part of Mane is actually offside? I don't know, whether it's the back of his T-shirt or like some of the numbers off the peeling off his back. I really don't know. I don't know what the VAR technologist, whoever it was doing. I just don't know. And I just think the less said about it, the better, because I think we can go round and round in circles for days and we'd never get anywhere. But VAR rules are weird. Bottom line should be is if it's not clear and obvious, then I think the attacker should get the advantage. And I don't think that was clear and obvious where they could actually rule out a goal. So I think the ruling on the pitch should have stood and it should have been awarded a goal. And that's the bottom line.
Yeah. I still sorry.
Little violin for Levi.
I still stand by that. I think that the technology should be better in terms of, the cameras that they use for like tracking the 100 meters at the Olympics, and those cameras that literally are on like a dolly, like along the side of the pitch. There should be like a camera that just tracks the ball and always has like a perfect line across, because every time we see one of these offsides, the camera's at like a weird angle, like it's a static camera that's there for the whole game. I know that they're using rough, Hawkeye measurement type things, but I don't know. I just think it would be a better fan experience to actually see that perfect picture down the line. But I don't know. I'm sure that's something that they'll probably be thinking about working on, or whether they'll have in future, like players will actually have kind of points on their jerseys or something that work in the same way as the goal line technology at the moment. And
I just think
you think it takes a lot out of the game.
Get into the fine margins of the game, and I just think if it's not clear and obvious by a video, like the video referee, then it should be awarded, and the goal should be given. I've had enough of these hairline offsides. They're just honestly ridiculous. It's not clear and obvious. The attacker gets the advantage. Let's keep the rules as simple as possible, and let's keep the rules as they have been for predominantly a lot of the time, where you can almost run it in line with VAR and for it to still be effective, so it's not called into question so many times. Give the attacker the advantage and award a goal if it's not clear and obvious.
Yeah, there needs to be daylight between. Sorry, I was going to say.
Sorry, mate.
Daylight is what they should be looking for, really.
Definitely.
If there's no daylight between the last defender and the striker, I think it should be onside.
Yeah, Tom?
I agree. I think the point that I repeatedly see about VAR is we've created a sport where we have fewer goals from open play and more goals from penalties. And, is that what anyone wants? Almost certainly not. Probably spread betters for penalties only would be happy with it, and everyone else is it's a worse game. It's a less enjoyable game.
Well, fans are celebrating less because you're waiting for 5 minutes to see if it's going to go to VAR and get it.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen goals in Germany which has had VAR for a few years, where a guy got sent through one-on-one with a keeper, and he had like an entire half of the pitch to run through, rounds the keeper, slots it in, and all his teammates are following him, and he's like, whoa, let's wait. And he's not even celebrating. So how is that a benefit? I mean, it's ludicrous. I mean, I've never been a fan of VAR for that reason. I think if I went to a game and it was 1-0, but my chance to celebrate got tempered by the fact that I had to wait for VAR, that's almost a wasted afternoon. So it's worse for the fans in the ground. It's worse for the players almost, because they're not being able to celebrate or get the full emotion of it. And I've never been a big fan of it, but at least if it was getting the decisions right, you could see the argument for it. But it's not even doing that. I think it's something that we've got to live with, but it needs to be improved massively.